Have you ever wondered if there's a more agonizing question that can pierce the heart of a Christian family than this? What happens to a Christian who takes their own life? It's a soul-shattering question, one that silences prayers and shakes even the strongest foundations of faith. Perhaps you're here because this question isn't just theoretical for you. Maybe it has a face, a name, a story that anchors your pain in something very real and very close. If you're grappling with this anguish, know that you are not alone on this dark journey. Millions of Christian hearts around the world have walked this valley of tears, questioning not only the eternal destiny of those they love, but also wrestling with guilt, confusion, and feelings of spiritual failure. What you feel is real, it's profound, and it's far more common than you imagine. Your pain isn't a sign of weakness in faith, it's a testament to the love you carry and the depth of your human and spiritual connection. When the renowned evangelist Billy Graham was confronted with this question, he didn't offer easy answers or superficial comfort. He understood that behind this question lies a complex spiritual battle, a struggle that goes far beyond what our eyes can see. Graham knew he was facing one of the deepest wounds of the human experience, the one that happens when inner pain becomes so intense that a person can no longer glimpse the light at the end of the tunnel. To truly understand what happens to a Christian who takes their own life, we must first understand that we are facing a spiritual war. It's not a battle that takes place only on the physical or psychological plane. It's a conflict involving forces beyond our natural comprehension. It's as if the soul is being pressed between two realities, the promise of redemption and hope that Christ offers, and the overwhelming darkness that can consume a wounded mind. Think of Job, the righteous man who lost everything and reached the point of cursing the day he was born. He didn't take his own life, but his words revealed the depth of despair that can reach even the most faithful. May the day I was born perish, and the night it was said, a boy is conceived. Job shows us that it's possible to be deeply loved by God and yet experience pain so intense that it calls existence into question. Or consider the prophet Elijah, who, after a great spiritual victory, fled to the desert and asked God to take his life. "Now, Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers." Even as one of Israel's greatest prophets, Elijah experienced what we now recognize as signs of profound depression. God didn't condemn him for this request. Instead, he sent an angel to care for him, provided food and rest, and gently restored his purpose. These stories teach us something fundamental. The struggle against despair is not a sign of lack of faith, but a real human battle that can affect even the most devout servants of God. When we understand this, we begin to see that suicide is not primarily a question of salvation, but rather the tragic result of pain that has become unbearable. Billy Graham used to say that salvation doesn't depend on how we die, but on how we live our relationship with Christ. He understood that when a person genuinely accepts Jesus as Savior, that decision creates an eternal covenant that cannot be broken by a moment of despair, no matter how tragic. Salvation is a gift from God, not a human achievement that can be lost by an action taken in a moment of extreme mental and emotional anguish. But why does this happen? Why would someone who knows the love of Christ, who has experienced His grace, and who has the promise of eternal life, still reach the point of taking their own life? To understand this painful reality, we need to explore the depths of the human experience and recognize that there are complex and interconnected reasons that can lead a wounded soul to this extreme point. If you've come this far, I know you're seeking not only answers but also hope. Continue with me on this journey. Subscribe to the channel to receive more reflections like this, which can bring light to moments of darkness. Together, let's discover that even in the most difficult situations, God's love remains unshakable. The first reason why this can happen is related to the weight of unhealed emotional wounds that accumulate throughout life. Imagine the soul as a precious vessel that, over the years, receives small cracks. Childhood traumas, rejections, losses, disappointments, hurtful words, failed relationships. Each of these experiences leaves a mark, And when these wounds aren't properly healed through the process of inner healing that God offers, they can accumulate until the internal pressure becomes unbearable. Many Christians mistakenly believe that conversion should automatically heal all emotional wounds, but the truth is that salvation is the beginning of a lifelong healing process. God saves us instantly, but He heals us gradually. It's as if He pulls us from a burning building. We're saved from the danger, but we still need medical attention to treat the burns. Some people carry wounds so deep that they affect their ability to process pain in a healthy way. And when an additional crisis arises, it can be the straw that breaks the camel's back. The second reason lies in the nature of the spiritual battle each Christian faces. Satan is called the father of lies because his primary weapon is the distortion of truth. When a person is deeply depressed or facing a severe emotional crisis, their ability to discern between God's truth and the enemy's lies can become compromised. It's like wearing sunglasses on a cloudy day. Everything seems darker than it really is. The enemy whispers lies like, "You're a burden to everyone. No one really cares about you. God is disappointed in you. You'll never get better. Your family would be better off without you." These lies can become so loud in a person's mind that they drown out the gentle voice of God, which constantly declares, "You are loved. You are valuable. I have plans of hope for you." When the spiritual battle intensifies and the person lacks adequate support or the necessary spiritual tools to combat these lies, they may make a tragic decision based on false information. The third reason lies in the spiritual and emotional isolation many Christians experience, especially when struggling with mental health issues. There's an unfortunate stigma in many Christian communities where believers are expected to always be victorious and joy-filled. This pressure can cause those who are suffering to hide their pain, feel ashamed of their struggles, and isolate themselves precisely when they need support and fellowship the most. God did not create us to walk alone. He established the church as a body where each member cares for the other, where burdens are shared, and where love is demonstrated through concrete actions. When a person feels isolated from their faith community, when they believe they can't be honest about their struggles without being judged, they may begin to carry a weight alone that should be shared. Isolation creates fertile ground for destructive thoughts to grow and multiply, like poisonous weeds in a neglected garden. The fourth reason is related to the nature of mental illness and how it affects judgment and decision-making. Just as a person with diabetes needs insulin and someone with a broken bone needs a cast, those struggling with severe depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or other mental conditions need appropriate medical care. Unfortunately, many Christian communities still view mental illness as a purely spiritual issue, neglecting the fact that God created us as integrated beings, body, soul, and spirit, and that problems in any of these areas can affect the others. When the brain isn't functioning properly due to chemical imbalances, trauma, or other medical conditions, a person's ability to reason clearly, remember God's promises, feel hope, and make healthy decisions can be severely compromised. It's like trying to drive a car with faulty brakes. No matter how skilled the driver, there are physical limitations that can lead to accidents. God understands these limitations because He created us and intimately knows how we function. The fifth reason involves the tension between God's time and human time, especially regarding the healing and restoration process. We live in a culture that values quick results and instant solutions, but deep healing, especially from emotional and spiritual wounds, often happens slowly, like the growth of a tree or the healing of a deep wound. Some people may become frustrated with what they perceive as slowness in the healing process, especially when facing intense pain. This frustration can be intensified when a person prays fervently for relief, but God's answer seems delayed. It's like being in a storm at sea. You know God can instantly calm the waters, but sometimes He allows the storm to continue for reasons we don't fully understand. During these waiting periods, when the pain seems endless and hope becomes difficult to maintain, some people may make the tragic decision to end their earthly journey, not because they've lost faith, but because the strength to continue has run out. When we understand these underlying reasons, we begin to see that suicide among Christians is not primarily a matter of salvation or damnation, but rather the tragic result of a convergence of factors that can temporarily overwhelm even a heart that knows Christ. It's like a wounded soldier who, in the midst of battle, becomes so injured that they can no longer fight. This doesn't make them any less of a soldier, nor does it negate their loyalty to their commander. Billy Graham used to emphasize that God is bigger than our worst moments. He understood that God's character doesn't change based on our actions in moments of despair, just as a father's love doesn't change when his child is delirious with a high fever. God sees beyond the action to the heart, beyond the moment to eternity, beyond the pain to the person he created and loves unconditionally. This doesn't mean we should minimize the tragedy of suicide or ignore the pain it causes. Each life lost in this way represents a story interrupted, dreams unrealized, relationships broken, and a void that only that person could fill. It's a wound that touches not only the immediate family, but ripples of grief that spread through the community, leaving others questioning their own faith and struggling to find meaning amidst the suffering. It is in these darkest moments that the light of the gospel shines most brightly. The message of Christ is not that we must be perfect to be loved, but that we are loved despite our imperfections. It's not that we must be strong enough to overcome every battle, but that His strength is made perfect in our weakness. It's not that we must never fail, but that His love is greater than all our failures. The hope we offer isn't based on our ability to maintain faith at all times, but on the faithfulness of God, which remains constant even when our faith falters. It's like a parent who continues to love their child even when the child is having a tantrum. The love isn't based on the moment's behavior, but on the established relationship. For those who have lost a loved one in this way, healing begins with understanding that you didn't fail, as a family, as a church, or as a community. There are no magic formulas to prevent every tragedy, nor are there signs that can always be interpreted correctly. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, despite all the love shown, despite all the prayers offered, a person's inner storm can become so intense that they make a decision that doesn't reflect their true nature or their relationship with God. Healing also involves allowing yourselves to grieve fully. God doesn't expect us to quickly overcome such a profound loss. He himself wept at Lazarus's tomb, even knowing he would raise his friend. Our tears are sacred to God. Each one is collected, each sigh is heard, each moment of pain is shared by the one who intimately knows human suffering. But beyond grief, there's also room for celebration. Celebration of the life that was lived, of the moments of joy shared, of the positive impact that person had on the world. We can choose to remember not just how the story ended, but how it was lived. We can honor the memory of the one who is gone through actions that demonstrate Christ's love to others who may be silently struggling. It's also important to acknowledge that healing is a process, not an event. There will be good days and bad days, moments of peace and moments of intense pain. This is normal and expected. Healing doesn't mean the longing disappears or that the loss ceases to matter, but rather that we learn to carry this experience in a way that honors both our grief and our faith. One of the most beautiful dimensions of Christian hope is that our story doesn't end with physical death. We believe in a God who can bring redemption even from the most tragic situations, who can use our pain to generate compassion, our loss to create connection with others who suffer, our experience to bring healing to wounded hearts. It's as if God takes the broken pieces of our lives and creates from them a mosaic even more beautiful than the original. For those struggling with suicidal thoughts, know that your life is immeasurably valuable. You are not a burden, you are a gift. You are not a problem to be solved, you are a person to be loved. You are not defined by your current pain, you are defined by the eternal love God has for you. Seek help. Talk to someone you trust. Seek professional support. Remember that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but of wisdom. The church also has a vital role in this process of healing and prevention. We need to create safe spaces where people can be honest about their struggles without fear of judgment. We need to talk openly about mental health, offering not only prayer, but also practical resources and professional support. We need to embrace those who are suffering, not with easy answers, but with consistent presence and unconditional love. We must also combat the stigma that still exists around mental illness, recognizing that seeking psychological or psychiatric help is not a lack of faith, but an act of self-responsibility and care. Just as we don't hesitate to see a doctor when we have an infection, we shouldn't hesitate to seek help when our mental health is compromised. Prevention also involves creating communities where people feel genuinely known and loved. This means going beyond superficial greetings on Sunday and developing real relationships where we can share our burdens. It means being attentive to the signs that someone may be struggling and having the courage to ask difficult questions and offer concrete help. When Billy Graham was asked about the eternal destiny of Christians who took their own lives, he often redirected the conversation to the character of God. He reminded people that we serve a God of infinite love, perfect justice, and abundant mercy. A God who knows every heart, who understands every circumstance, who sees beyond the surface to the depths of the human soul. Graham understood that there are mysteries about eternity that haven't been fully revealed to us in this life. He knew that speculating about God's judgment in specific situations can be both presumptuous and painful for those who are suffering. Instead, he chose to focus on what we know for sure, that God is love, that His mercy is new every morning, that He does not despise a broken and contrite heart. The central message of the gospel is that we are saved by grace through faith, not by works. This salvation is not something we earn through our good behavior or lose through our failures. It is a gift we receive based on the complete work of Christ on the cross. If our salvation depended on our ability to maintain faith at all times, none of us would have hope, for we all have moments of doubt, despair, and failure. This truth doesn't diminish the seriousness of suicide or suggest we should be casual about life. On the contrary, it reminds us that each life is too precious to be lost, that every person has infinite worth in God's eyes, and that there is always hope, even in the darkest moments. Christian hope isn't based on the absence of problems, but on God's presence amidst them. It's not the promise that we'll never face storms, but the assurance that we won't face them alone. It's the trust that even when we can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, God is with us in the darkness. For those who have lost a loved one to suicide, remember that God's love is greater than our understanding. Your tears are precious to Him. Your grief is real and valid. Your longing is a testament to the love you shared. And your hope can be renewed in the certainty that God is bigger than our worst moments and that His mercy triumphs over judgment. Healing will come, not because the pain will disappear completely, but because we will learn to carry this experience in a way that honors both our humanity and our faith. We will discover that it's possible to grieve and hope simultaneously, to question and still trust, to experience profound loss and still find purpose and meaning. Each new morning is an opportunity to choose hope over despair, love over fear, life over death. The legacy of those we've lost doesn't need to be defined solely by how their lives ended, but by how they were lived and how their stories can inspire compassion, understanding, and action on behalf of others who are suffering. We can honor their memory by working to create a world where fewer people feel so desperately alone that they see suicide as the only way out. May our response to this tragedy not be judgment, but compassion, not condemnation, but understanding, not isolation, but community, not despair, but renewed hope that God can bring healing even from the deepest wounds. As we conclude this reflection, let me ask a question that can guide your own journey of healing and growth. Amidst the mystery of human suffering and divine mercy, how can you become a source of hope and healing for others who are silently struggling? How can your own experience of pain be transformed into an instrument of compassion in God's hands?